Nigeria has 48 ministers, the largest cabinet in this country's democratic history. But the Minister of Health told the National Assembly his ministry received 38 million naira out of 286 billion allocated. The Minister of Transportation said he received 1% of his capital budget. The Ministry of Solid Minerals reportedly received nothing. And yet, the government collected 28 trillion naira in 2025, 3 trillion naira above its own revenue target. So, Nigeria has 48 ministers, a revenue surplus of 3 trillion naira, and most ministers are governing on paper. The question is not who is in the cabinet, the question is who controls the money that determines whether any of those ministers can actually do their jobs. That circle is not 48 people, it is 5. And this channel will name them, rank them, and show you exactly why the architecture was built this way. Most channels will give you the headline, we give you the architecture behind it. If you have never been here before, you just found Nigeria's most analytical political channel. Subscribe because what comes next is the part they hope you never piece together. When Tinubu assembled his cabinet in August 2023, he was not building a technocratic government. He was building a political architecture around 3 intersecting logics. 1. Political reward. Nyesom Wike is a PDP member. He was given the FCT, one of the most consequential ministerial posts in the country, because his 2023 support for Tinubu deepened the PDP's internal crisis. His appointment was a strategic acquisition dressed as a ministerial portfolio. 2. Structural loyalty. Wale Edun is not a political figure. He is a technocrat who has worked in close proximity to Tinubu since the Lagos State years. He was always going to be the economic steward. The question was never whether, only which title he would carry. Economic control. Tinubu described Yemi Cardoso during the 2023 campaign as his headmaster for the economy. Both Edun and Cardoso are Lagos-connected operators embedded in Tinubu's financial network for over 2 decades. The CBN governor appointment and finance minister appointment are not 2 decisions. They are 1 decision expressed in 2 titles. Every minister outside this core circle received a title and a ministry, but most of them received 0 capital releases from the budget. We will return to who made that decision and where the 3 trillion naira surplus revenue went. Wike's FCT was removed from the Treasury single account that governs every other federal ministry. We will return to what that financial arrangement means for accountability and why it matters more than any road he has built. This Day Live's power list stated it directly. The government of Bola Tinubu literally revolves around Wale Edun. That is institutional description, not flattery. As coordinating minister of the economy, Edun sits above other economic ministers. He chairs the economic management team. Every major fiscal decision passes through his office. At the APC's March 2026 convention, the party's most significant gathering since 2022, Edun was the Federal Executive Council's chosen economic spokesman. He declared GDP growth has risen from 2 to 4%, inflation is declining, and foreign reserves are stabilizing. Whether one accepts those claims or not, the choice of Edun as FEC's voice tells you his position in the institutional hierarchy. Cardoso and the CBN. Coordination, not independence. The CBN's decisions to float the naira, clear the 7 billion naira FX backlog, and reduce ways and means advances from 26.95 trillion naira to 2.84 trillion naira were coordinated fiscal monetary moves, not independent monetary policy. That coordination produced results. Moody's upgraded Nigeria from CAA1 to B3.
But it also means monetary independence is, in practice, subordinated to the preferences of the same Lagos-based economic network. The capital budget revelation. In February 2026, the House of Representatives confronted Edun, Budget Minister Atiku Bagudu, and FIRS Chairman Zak Adidiji over the complete absence of capital releases in the 2025 budget. Revenue surpassed its target by 3 trillion naira, but the Health Ministry received 38 million naira out of 286 billion naira. Transportation received 1% of its capital budget. Solid Minerals received nothing. Edun's response: the government stopped the unsustainable methodology of printing money. What he did not explain, and what the committee did not resolve, is where the surplus went if not for the capital projects the budget mandated. Nigeria collected 28 trillion naira in 2024, 3 trillion naira above target, zero capital release to most ministries. Wike's FCT was removed from the TSA, giving it independent revenue access. 2 ministers had documented funds. 46 operated in a financial vacuum. The question is not whether the government has money, it is who decides where it goes. And that person is not a cabinet of 48. It is one ministry and one minister. The Emperor of Abuja. Nyesom Wike has completed over 150 kilometers of roads in the FCT. He delivered the Outer Southern Expressway, the Wuye Flyover Link Bridge, the Abuja Metro Rail refurbishment, and the International Conference Center renovation. His infrastructure record is, by most independent assessments, the most visible ministerial delivery in the Tinubu cabinet. But African Business described his FCT arrangement as approaching an Emperor of Abuja dynamic, power granted rarely before, growing without parallel increases in accountability. Premium Times investigations revealed that Wike allocated 10 billion naira from the FCT supplementary budget for rent and furniture for the 4 presiding officers of the National Assembly, Akpabio, Abbas, Barau Jibrin, and Ben Kalu. The National Housing Program for the entire country received 5.3 billion naira in the same budget. Wike spent nearly twice the national housing budget on accommodation for 4 individuals. His ministry has refused multiple Freedom of Information requests about FCT budget details. The most analytically important reframe in this video: Wike is the most visible minister. Visibility is not structural power. Edun is the most structurally powerful minister because his capital release decisions determine whether every other minister can function. Wike builds roads because he has money. Every minister who received nothing did not govern. That is not a statement about individual competence. It is a statement about who in this government has the institutional authority to make other ministers either relevant or irrelevant. The silent power brokers. 4 other ministers carry genuine institutional weight without generating front-page coverage. Mohammed Badaru, Minister of Defense, controls the security architecture at the most sensitive moment in recent Nigerian history, following the September 2025 coup plot, the replacement of the service chiefs, and the ongoing Northeast counter-insurgency. The civil-military relationship question is the most consequential question receiving the least analysis. Badaru's silence from controversy is itself a form of power. Lateef Fagbemi, Attorney General, controls the institutional machinery of federal prosecution. El-Rufai's charges, the detained cleric, the EFCC ICPC coordination on high-profile cases all involve prosecutorial decisions adjacent to the AGF's authority. His studied absence from public controversy signals careful management of the administration's legal operations. Bosun Tiani, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, attracted $191 million
in FDI in Q1 2024 alone, a 9-fold increase from the previous year. He is building the policy framework that will determine whether Nigeria's tech sector becomes a genuine economic driver or remains a Lagos-centric bubble. If what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know what you think before we get to the part that changes everything. Zero capital releases to most ministries is not a fiscal footnote. It is a democratic failure. When the National Assembly approves a health budget of 286 billion naira and the executive releases 38 million naira, the mandate the law provided has been rendered meaningless. The legislature approved, the executive chose not to implement. That choice produced a full year without the health development funding Nigerian law required. The pattern of resource concentration is not politically neutral either. Wike's FCT construction program is visible, photographable, and politically attributable. Most other ministries' failures are invisible because zero capital releases produce no news. They simply produce the absence of development. The minister who received the most public criticism for governance failures in 2025 was not Edun, who controlled capital releases. It was the line ministers whose programs stalled. Those ministers did not underperform because of their own failures. They underperformed because they were not given the money to perform. The accountability architecture is designed so that the minister who controls resources is insulated from blame while those who lack them absorb the criticism. That is a sophisticated political design, not an accidental governance outcome. Do capital releases begin flowing to health, transportation, and solid minerals in Q2 2026? Their presence or absence determines whether the 2026 budget becomes another paper exercise. Does Wike formally cross to the APC before the 2027 campaign, or does he continue as a PDP minister leading an APC re-election operation? That decision is the most consequential individual political move in South-South Nigeria before 2027. Does the House of Representatives take enforcement action on zero capital releases, or does legislative pressure remain performative? If NAS cannot enforce budget implementation, its constitutional role in appropriation is ceremonial. Does Badalu's defense ministry issue any public signal on civil-military relations post-coup plot? Continued silence from defense is currently the most significant thing that ministry is saying. Does the AGF's prosecutorial coordination produce further high-profile cases in patterns that analytical observers can compare with the Kwankwaso sanctions and El Rufai ICPC narratives? Zero capital releases, despite a 3 trillion naira revenue surplus, reflect Edun's deliberate fiscal consolidation, stopping monetary financing of expenditure to rebuild Nigeria's fiscal credibility with international markets. The cost was borne not by the finance ministry, but by line ministers whose programs existed on paper only. Whether that trade-off was worth the macroeconomic gain is the central governance question of Tinubu's first term. Wale Edun's FCT was removed from the Treasury's single account under Section 299 of the 1999 Constitution, which makes the FCT's constitutional governor. The removal gave FCT administration independent revenue access. It also means Wale's expenditure is subject to less centralized oversight than any other federal ministry. The infrastructure is real, the accountability is opaque. Both statements are simultaneously true. We began with a question: who really controls Nigeria under Tinubu? Wale Edun controls the resources, Yemi Cardoso controls the monetary architecture, Nyesom Wike controls the capital and its physical expression, Mohammed Badaru controls the security apparatus, Lateef Fagbemi controls the prosecutorial machinery. 5 people, 43 with titles. The remaining ministers are not irrelevant. Some, Tijani, Ali Pate in health, Dele Alake in solid minerals, are capable technocrats doing genuine work within constraints they did not create. But their capacity to deliver is structurally dependent on decisions made above them in a hierarchy they do not control. A cabinet of 48 ministers with documented zero capital releases for most is not a team, It is a political architecture. And the question Nigerians should be asking before 2027 is not which minister they prefer, it is whether the architecture itself serves the people it is supposed to govern. Tinubu's 5 most powerful ministers, Edun, Cardoso, Wike, Badaru, and Fagbemi, control Nigeria's money, monetary system, capital city, security, and prosecutorial power, respectively. The remaining 43 hold titles. The architecture is deliberate. Its accountability to Nigerians is the question 2027 must answer. You now know something that most Nigerians watching the news tonight do not know. What you do with that is up to you. Share it, debate it, challenge it. That is how democracies survive. Nigeria deserves better analysis. See you in the next one.